Welcome back to Bullet Catcher Gaming. This is, of course, Ghost Recon Breakpoint. You may remember, probably back in September, I believe it was, we posted up a video that was entitled, What Would You Like to See in the Next Ghost Recon Game? And it was based on a survey that was put together by the one and only Sandylands. Sandylands was deployed after that, so we didn't get a chance to put that video together, but he is now back. Thank you for your service, buddy. It's appreciated. Thank you. I'm sure everyone out there will also agree with me on that one. Yeah, so basically what it is that we asked you to go through the survey and put down, give us answers to 69 questions. I'm sure you did that on purpose. To 69 questions about what we'd like to see in the next game. It was very meaty, very in-depth, so we're going to do two parts, a video in two parts going through those results. Certain questions obviously will go into more detail than others depending on what they are. So we're going to do the first 30 or so questions on this video, and then there'll be a follow-up with the rest of them. These video results will be passed over to Ubisoft, and hopefully they will take that into consideration when they're making their next game, which we all hope they are, or even utilised into possible new Breakpoint content, who knows. But we will definitely pass that on. We have a Discord link is in the description below. Sandy has his own channel on there, so please head on over there. We've got well over 1,000 people, I think about 1,200 people on there now, so come over and join the conversation. Right, okay, so let's get cracking, shall we? That's a very English thing to say. Question 1 was, should the next game have an online requirement to play? Now, these are the answers. So the first highest answer was 42%, which was updates only. 32% was never. 19% was no preference. And 7% was always. Now, what do you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what most people... makes a lot of sense. People weren't happy with the constant online requirement for Breakpoint. Still get people asking now when it's going to be changed to an offline mode.
I probably get, that is probably one of the most consistent questions or comments in YouTube videos since I've been doing this, is always, they don't like the always online. The kind of games as a service thing, will that happen? Probably not. But who knows? I mean, there was a kind of hybrid of that with Wildlands. I can't see why they can't do it. Okay, question 2. Should crossplay be available at launch? Yes, 59%. No, 34%. Or no preference, should I say, is 34%. And no, 7%. My take on that is makes sense for crossplay to be available. Let's be honest. There's no reason why it shouldn't be. It should be on there. Breakpoint was supposed to have it and hasn't had it.
Especially for next-gen consoles as well.
Absolutely, and makes perfect sense. It's quite frustrating, especially when you've got a Discord with people on so many different platforms and we can't play together. It's really annoying. But there you go. So question 3, all in-game content, unlocks and store purchases should be, this was the number one answer, 86%, saved to your Ubisoft account. Number 2 answer was no preference. That was 9%. Last should only save to individual slots. That was 5%. So effectively, it makes complete sense there. But the problem is 86% of people are saying that it should be saved to your Ubisoft account. So effectively, if you've got PlayStation, Xbox, PC, whatever it is, and you own the game on multiple platforms, once you make a purchase, it would appear on the other one as well. There's no way they're going to give us that, though, because they want you to buy it twice. But obviously, that's what everyone would like. So if Ubisoft are watching this, imagine the goodwill if you were to do that. I know loads of people who play on multiple platforms and have bought this game on multiple platforms.
Yeah.
So think of your fan base there and the goodwill that would go down if you did that.
Exactly.
Question 4. Should gear score be included in any future Ghost Recon games? No, 78%. No preference, 11%. And yes, 11%. What does that tell you?
Yeah. I mean, it says everything, to be fair. The Ghost Recon community does not, by and large, want Gear Score.
No, and I have to agree. I don't want it either. It's good for one thing and one thing only for me. If you like to raid, that's fine, and I've raided
Yeah.
plenty of times. And yes, it can be fun, even though I don't believe it belongs in a Ghost Recon game. Controversial, but I don't. It's for me. It's just about running around picking up weapons and then selling
Yeah.
them to make quick money. That's all I ever use it for, and that is it. But I don't think it should be in the game personally.
Nah.
So, question 5. Should the current survival and crafting mechanics be included in the next game? Yes, 63%. No, 22%. No preference, 15%. Well, I have to say that the 63%, that makes sense for me. I would say yes. I do think they could be updated so they work better. I find
Yeah.
that you never need to use the water in the game, really, hardly ever.
Yeah.
It could be utilized in such a more interesting way. I'd like the bandages to be made different. They drive me crazy.
It's a very long animation.
Oh, it goes on forever. I get that they're trying to go for a bit of realism, but it doesn't look realistic anyway, does it? Because you always get shot in the same place. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
But yes, but it needs to be completely reworked. That's how I look at it. So, should the next game have a class system in PvE? Yes, 42%. No, 34%. And no preference, 25%. What do you make of that?
I mean, this one seems to be probably more split. I think the question itself probably needs to be dived into deeper at another point. Um, the class idea itself is good, but sometimes with the class restrictions, it gets very frustrating.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. And will we even get another PvE in a? Will we even get? Well, obviously a class system in PvE, but regards to PvP class system, we probably won't even get a PvP in the next game. It will probably just
Yeah.
be frontline only. But class systems in the PvE, yeah, I'm actually split on this. I like the class system, and I don't. I
Yeah.
almost wish that there was a way of them having lots of different things gadgets wise, like the class systems have, and you got to just choose one as opposed
Yeah.
to it being locked into a class.
Also, almost like a build your own class.
Yes, I think that would work so much better. Like maybe you want, like Pathfinder, for example. I use Pathfinder because I like the white hot thermal, but I don't. But I'd love to be able to have maybe the gas grenades or something. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like it would be nice if you could build your own class.
Yeah.
Don't necessarily want the drone, so that would be cool. So question 7, should the next game, right, this is an interesting one. Number 1, this was at 47%, refocus on gunplay and small team tactics. Second was both with the emphasis on gunplay and tactics. That was 46%, very close there. Third was both with an emphasis on more future tech, which was 4%. Continue to focus on future tech drones, etc., which was 2%. No preference was 1%. Well, that goes to show you future tech, no thank you by the community there.
Yeah.
Refocus on gunplay and small team tactics. Bit more like Wildlands, effectively. I think
Yeah.
people don't mind some future tech, like some specific goggles, or do you know what I mean? I think they don't mind things like that. Things that are real, that are on the horizon, or are just currently being used, but which are quite futuristic. I think people are well up for that. But what they're not up for is flying drones and drone tanks and things like that.
Yeah.
If they
I
find
think
tanks in the
basically,
game, they want to see real tanks. They don't want to see
yeah.
drones.
I think with Breakpoint, they basically pushed the future tech too far, and that's
Yeah,
probably put quite a lot of like the older school players off.
Yeah, and the story did need that, but that doesn't mean to say that the story was right.
Yeah,
The story was just wrong in terms of what people wanted. They wanted a more Wildlands experience. I'm not saying it's got to be like Wildlands, and we wanted to see an improvement over Wildlands, obviously. But in terms of environment and how the game works, I think they would have preferred that. So,
yeah, definitely.
question 8: which geographical area would you like to see the next game take place? So, Middle East was 31%. No preference was 15%. That's really interesting. Africa 13%. Balkans 13%. Southeast Asia was 10. Fictional location was 8. South America was 6. And Central America was 5%. Now, my take on this is an interesting one. No preference got 15%. So initially, when you see that, I was wondering if people wanted a made up location. They thought just give us a made up place, but then
Yeah,
fictional location only got 8%. So there's quite a lot of people there that just don't care where it's set at all,
yeah.
which is really interesting, fascinating. But this will almost, I think, not contradict a question later on, but it will make it further question look a bit more interesting in terms of some of the places that are chosen.
Yeah.
So we'll move on to them. So question 9: preferred location in Central America or the Caribbean? Mexico was 32%. No preference 24%. Again, really high. Cuba 21, Panama 16, Belize 6. Mexico being the highest makes sense for me there. If you're looking for a more wildlands, taking down a drug cartel type thing. So question 10 is same question, but for South America. Brazil was 26%. No preference again, 23%. Colombia, 23%. Venezuela, 21%. And Peru, 8%. What do you make of that?
Well, the South America one specifically is probably quite interesting to me, and this goes back to question 8. So I always hear a lot of people talking about, a Wildlands 2, a direct sequel to Wildlands, which would suggest it would be back in, somewhere like South America, taking on another drug cartel. But everything that I see, data wise, shows me the exact opposite.
I
That
think
it's,
I think people want to take down terrorists more than
yeah,
anything else, terrorist networks and things like that. But we'll get to that because we've got questions that come to that kind of stuff later
yeah,
on. So question 11. So preferred location in Africa. So Somalia 37%. No preference 24. Nigeria 15. Sierra Leone, apologies, 14%. And Sudan 11%. Somalia makes sense. Everyone loves Black Hawk Down. It is a
yeah,
bit of a one of Wild West kind of country, isn't it? Where anything goes. You've got Somali pirates. There's a lot of terrorism related things. We hear about training and all that kind of stuff that goes on over there. Somalia would make perfect sense. Would Ubisoft do Somalia? No, no way would they.
I think they would. I can't see the Somali government complaining.
No, do you know? No, I mean, without
But
getting
then
into
again, yeah,
without getting
on
into
another thing,
politics, there is something that for me that would go, we can't do that because we'll get called out over it. Black Hawk Down was called out over it by the same thing by certain groups of people,
yeah,
so that won't happen right now. Definitely will not happen. They will, if you're fighting an enemy, that enemy will be a very mixed group of people.
yeah.
That is for sure. And because they will not want to have any kind of politics at all. So question 12, Middle East, Afghanistan 48%, no preference 20, Syria 16, Iraq 8, Yemen 8. Afghanistan makes perfect sense.
Don't know if you've seen it recently as well. I put up another quick, almost like game scenario idea. Filtered around the kind of a Middle East scenario, and everybody so far has seen it said that it's exactly what a Ghost Recon game would be.
Well, maybe the maybe the objective in this one is for you to go back and try and get back some of the $80 billion worth of stuff they left behind. Sorry, that might be controversial, but obviously we know it's true. Still shocking in my eyes that happened, but there you go. Afghanistan makes perfect sense why people would want it. Would Ubisoft want to go there? I personally believe they would not.
There is an answer, and me and Jeremy spoke about this before we passed, obviously. And one of the things that was suggested was, instead of maybe, obviously, for the results of these questions, it seems that the Middle East came out as the most requested. So it might not necessarily have to be Afghanistan. It could be a fictional location made up within, the Middle East.
That would make a lot of sense. That would make a lot of sense. But people were saying they didn't want that wasn't that high for a fictional location. But I suppose if they were fighting in Afghanistan, but literally under another name, it could be anything. It could even sound similar. Maybe they'd be okay with that. As long as the environment, if it looked exactly like it. 13 was the same question, but Southeast Asia. Vietnam, 28%. No preference, 23%. Burma, 21%, which is Myanmar. Philippines, 20%. And obviously we've got Laos right down the end there. So Vietnam would be interesting. Not sure that it's got the biomes that people might want. I'd love, I've played some games before in the Vietnam War. They're fascinating. It's really interesting. And I think that any Ghost Recon game needs a jungle biome in it. I think it always makes it interesting. A thick jungle is always an interesting place to have a gunfight in. But I can see why Vietnam won that one. So this is, for me, the most interesting one. So 14 is the Balkans. And number one, considering what's going on right now, is Ukraine at 42%. No preference, 23%. Serbia, 14%. Bosnia, 11%. And Kosovo, 10%. I think if it was Ukraine now, I think people would clearly be okay with that because of what's going on. And if you involved, obviously, a lot of Ghost Recon lore involves the Russians, you could make a really interesting story out of that. Would it be too close to home for them? Probably. And would they be attacked for creating something based on a real world event, especially if at the point of where we're recording this, no war has begun yet, but that could have changed by the time you're listening to this. Hopefully it doesn't, but who knows?
I hope not.
But that'd be interesting. But I think way too political for them to go down that road.
So this one for me was actually pretty interesting because when the survey came out, so the survey actually came out in August, and there was a lot of blowback initially about the fact that we mentioned Afghanistan in the survey, and people were like, "Oh, it's too close to what's going on." And it's interesting now looking at the answers that I put in there, that Ukraine came up, and now we're doing the video, and it's literally like Ukraine's potential on the brink of war. So I find that quite interesting, to be fair.
And this is always going to happen if you're using real world locations. You never know what's going to be going on in them. Let's move on. Question 15. Should the next game be open world? 61%. Mixture of both, 37%. No preference, 1%. And linear missions, 1%. Well, it's pretty clear then that people don't want linear missions, but they don't mind a bit of both. But open world seems to be the number one choice. That would be my choice. Something that I've really enjoyed about Breakpoint and Wildlands. Would I like more to do in the world? Absolutely. I'd like the game to come out and be supported fully for, say, 3 years, adding new things into the region, different enemies, different places, new missions, constant, and then utilize every part of that huge map that they give us, personally.
Definitely.
So, which year should the next game take place? So, number one was 2020, directly after Wildlands, 29%. 2026, directly after Breakpoint, was 20%. No preference, 13%. Historic, 94 to 2016, was 10%. 2018, directly before Wildlands, was 9%. 2024, so during the Future Soldier timeline, 8%. 2022 to 23, so during the events of Blind Prophets, the Breakpoint prequel novel, 8%. And after 2026, 4%. So once again, that's the most interesting for me. The after 2026 is showing 4%. So what that's showing is the more futuristic or the more into the future it is, the less people want it.
Yeah.
So, even though this was very close with directly after Breakpoint, directly after Wildlands, I think because I think what people are saying here is that if you do directly after Breakpoint, you can still go and do something, but it wouldn't involve drones or anything, would it? So
Yeah.
people are okay with that, the same as Wildlands. I think it's just that part of it more than anything is that don't bring robots and drones and things into the game. Yes, you can have your handheld drone, things like that, and the enemies could have that too. But they're, like I said earlier, no robotic tanks and things like
Exactly.
that and all the rest of it. People don't want to see it. Question 17. What type of main mission should the game be? So, number one, dismantle an international terrorist organization. What we mentioned earlier, 48%. Two is assist government forces during or directly after a coup d'etat, 14%. Dismantle an international. Oops, reading the wrong one. No preference, 12%. Assist rebel forces to overthrow a dictator or hostile regime, 12%. Dismantle local warlords, influence and power, 10%. And dismantle a major cartel narco state, 4%. What do you make of that?
Again, to me, one of the things that stands out the two things that stand out the most, is probably initially the major cartel narco state being last. Because every time I hear people saying, "Oh, we need a sequel to Wildlands," that's what it takes me in my head. We'll be fighting another part of the cartel, and it just doesn't look like for the community. It doesn't look like that's actually something they're interested in.
Do you think people are getting a little bit sick and tired in gaming of, let's look at the answer number one, the international terrorist organization being overwhelmingly what people want? Do you think gamers are getting sick and tired of playing as a tier one special forces unit and then being put up against something which is not a terrorist organization, which is basically, yes, we know they're used for other things, but they are primarily used as an anti-terrorist unit.
Exactly.
And they never look at the new Rainbow Six game. Yes, it might be a bit of fun, but it's not what the gamers wanted. They wanted to
Yeah.
see a Rainbow Six campaign made, which was fighting terrorists, because
Yeah.
that's what the unit was put together for. And it's like they're too, I don't know what it is. Are people too scared to have you fight terrorists? I don't know. Other games seem to have
I
no
think Ubisoft
issues
is.
with it. Call of Duty, the recent Modern Warfare, they didn't seem to care one bit. They got some flack, but they sold tons and tons
The,
of copies.
the missions in London, for example, the two missions that I remember in London. So the Clear House, and then that initial bit with you've got the terrorists in London. They were absolutely brilliant, and that to me would be exactly what I'd want for a Rainbow Six title.
Absolutely, I agree. I agree. But in terms of this game, in terms of Ghost Recon, please just, Ubisoft, like, yes, I'm sure you could throw in other things in here. I mean, you could have an international terrorist organization and also being overthrowing a hostile regime and a dictator at the same time. You could
Yeah.
interlink all of that stuff, even local warlords. You could have all of that. You could even chuck in a little side faction of a cartel, if you wanted to, operating in the
Exactly.
same area. Because let's face it, a lot of these countries have a huge drug trade going on, like Afghanistan and stuff, for example. You could effectively utilize all of that. But
Yeah.
people want to fight a terrorist organization if they are playing as tier one special forces. And I'm obviously not talking for people, but we pretty much know that's what people would like.
Yeah.
So, question 18, should the next game be number one, introduce a whole new team, 42%, focus on Nomad's team, 33%, no preference, 14%, Hunter team, 7%, Walker's team, 4%. My take on this is I'd like to see a new team.
Yeah.
Can Nomad be involved? Yes. If Nomad was in the team, would I be angry? No, not at all. I wouldn't be bothered, but I would bring back the original voice actor for a start,
Yeah.
and add that little bit of humour into the game that's missing from Breakpoint. But
It's very
overall,
clinical.
it is too clinical. The game is clinical, and the people are clinical, and even the characters. There's no fun factor. The game is fun, but the story is not.
Yeah.
So I'd go for a new team personally, but you could also have Nomad involved somehow. You could have him
Well,
as a DLC. He has to turn up and help, or I don't know, whatever.
yeah. I mean, almost as similar to what they've done in Wildlands when they actually introduced Walker. You know what I mean? You could easily have Nomad's team be doing something else in country where you have to basically come. They either come and help you, or you come and help them out quickly. And then it's a nod to Wildlands. It's a nod to break. It's a nod to Breakpoint, but that's it.
Yeah, agree,
They
100%,
they would be the type of crossovers that I think people would be happy with as well. So if you
absolutely.
had if you had over the course of maybe 2 or 3 years, and you had a crossover with Nomad's team, a crossover with Walker's team before he left, and maybe like even potentially small crossovers with Hunter team, people will enjoy that.
Well,
It keeps the
let's
lore of
be
the game.
honest. Let's be honest. If you were playing a brand new Ghost Recon game now, and you were asked by Ubisoft in a poll, look, what would you like as the next DLC? Nomad to enter the game or a Terminator DLC? We'll
I'd
know
pick,
what everyone would choose.
yeah,
Make it more fit into the story, and leave those things out. Though I will still, go into bat for the Predator mission in Wildlands. I still enjoyed that. I still
yeah.
liked that because
But the difference with though
it
that
didn't interfere, did it?
yeah, well, the difference with the Predator mission was it was bolted on at the end. Do you
Yes.
know what I mean? It was just a nice, fun side mission at the end, whereas the Terminator mission, right at the start, you know, the Terminator game. I'm not saying it directly impacts the game, but it's two completely different
Yeah.
sides of the same coin.
Exactly. And once again, it goes down the futuristic thing, which people do not
Yeah,
want. Would you like to see more extreme weather added in the game? Yes, 87%. No, 7%. Sorry, no preference was 7%, and no was 6%. For me, this is absolutely got to be yes all day long. I'd like to see complete whiteouts in the snow where you can barely see a metre or two in front of you, with huge blizzards and gales. I'd like to see the wind, like almost bending the trees where it's so
yeah,
intense. I'd like to see, like huge kind of dust storms, almost sandstorms
yeah,
in those areas. Absolutely. I need to see things like in Fortnite and Battlefield with giant hurricanes? No. But an actual kind of hurricane going on in the background where things are getting blown around and stuff, yes, that would be fun.
yeah,
I think that would add because that was what I loved about Wildlands. I thought the weather in Wildlands was really good. The rain with the thunderstorms, I thought they got that spot. Them added to the atmosphere.
yeah,
Really makes it more interesting, and especially stealthing into a base in like a whiteout or something would be amazing. Reminds me of like that those opening levels on Modern Warfare 2. Those kind of things would be great.
exactly.
So, would you like to see a day and night cycle reintroduced for NPCs and enemies? Yes, 98%. No preference, 2%. No, 0%. I think that's our first zero. So,
Yeah.
hopefully Ubisoft are going to watch this. Like I said, I'm going to send them to them. If they are watching this, these are the kind of things that people want to see. And I've never met anyone who doesn't want this. We talk about this stuff all the time on the Discord or just playing the game, stuff like that with different people. This is something that we really need. Sleeping enemies, yes, I want to kill them while they sleep. It just adds another part to the game. When to attack, for example. Should I attack at night because some of them will be sleeping? Should I do my missions at night because of that? It just adds another element to the game.
Like Wildlands had. You put a lot more thought into attacking the base in Wildlands because you were like, well, at night time there's going to be more people sleeping, so I've got a better chance of evading and getting in quiet. Whereas during the daytime, everyone was doubled up.
Yeah, and I'd like to see even more people sleeping. A whole barracks of troops sleeping, which would be
Exactly.
great. That would be so much fun. So, okay, question 21. Should NPCs have a daily work and life routine, like driving, etc.? So, yes, 94%, no preference, 5, and no was 1%. I mean, we barely even need to talk about this. Absolutely resounding yes, and I agree with that all day long. We want to see them going about their daily lives, and it's what's so lacking in Breakpoint, why the world still feels a bit
Yeah.
empty. I want to see NPCs everywhere. I always look at one thing. So if you play Wildlands and Breakpoint, you get into a helicopter at night time in Wildlands, fly up, not very far up, and just fly along and see all the headlights on the roads at
Yeah.
night time. Get in a helicopter and fly up in Breakpoint, and you see nothing. And it just shows you how alive Wildlands was compared to Breakpoint.
It's crazy as well though, because according to law to Breakpoint, there's 30,000 people on the island, and even even with martial law, I still don't know where the 30,000 people could be.
Well, there's a couple of caves on the outside of the island. They're them, or they've taken a boat off. There's a lot of water. They're all out fishing. It's just you can't fly out there without the drone swarm killing you. But
Yeah.
they can take
Maybe
off.
they're on more. Maybe that's what it is.
That's what it is.
Maybe they just added them on the more.
Moa's got a nudist beach, and so they all go out there.
That explains the drone
Yeah,
swarm.
exactly. It's so you can't perv on them. That's what it is. Right. Okay. So, question 22. Civilians in games should be or have one, have a hearts and mind campaign to build civilian trust. That was 80%. Friendly towards your team. That was 7%. So, won't give away your location as such. Third was hostile towards your team, will actively give away your location, 5%. No preference, 5%. And ambivalent towards your team, so won't react either way, was 3%. Me, this makes total sense. Once again, it's great to see the community, and this is why I think it's so important for Ubisoft to pay attention to things like this, is because the community are thinking what I'm thinking, you're thinking, and what
Yeah.
most people who I speak to, people who comment on videos, things like that, they seem to be, yes, there's always going to be people that have differences of opinion, and that's absolutely fine. But when it comes down to it, you do need to look at what the bulk of people want because you need to sell a game. You want to make money, it's why you're making these games. But you also have to make sure that they're enjoyable to the people who want to play them. And hearts and minds would be great for me. Have them friendly towards your team, but if you're in a specific area and you keep shooting them, then maybe they turn hostile towards you in that area. Something like that I think would be
Exactly. Which literally leads on to the next question.
absolutely. So question 23, intentionally killing civilians should NPCs become more hostile towards your team? 85% yes. Instant mission failure, 6%. No consequences, 4. no preference for. Well, we just covered that in a way. Absolutely
Yeah,
makes sense. Of course, they should become more hostile. They shouldn't be applauding you for shooting their neighbours or their, or their kid that was out playing football in the garden and you just blew them away. They shouldn't be like, no worries. They should be hostile towards you, like a real
yeah,
life scenario would be. No matter what good you're going to do, if you annoy the local populace, they will turn on you. We've seen it in multiple wars, and I'm sure you can speak to people about that better than anyone.
yeah.
But question 24: should you be able to change the NPC's language as a separate option? Yes, 76. No, 24. What do you think of that?
I think that speaks to another thing as well. So I see why a lot of people would say yes to it. Even simple things in Breakpoint, like if you could change the enemy's voice and the NPC's voice so that each specific group was speaking in a different language, I think it would feel more immersive sometimes. You know,
Yeah,
it
I
just
agree. I think it would feel immersive, or it would just be nice to have the option.
yeah.
Absolutely.
You get sick of hearing the same thing over and over again in Breakpoint.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas if you could set them to German or Russia, whatever language. I mean, you might be someone who's a non-English speaking, and want to select it to English, or whatever. All options should be available. It would be good fun. So, question 25: how many enemy factions should be in the game on release? So, the three factions 41%, no preference 30, two factions 25, one faction 4. So that's a clear indication that people don't want to be fighting one group. And this goes back to what I was saying earlier, regards to having a fighting a terrorist organization that could have a dictator, kind of dictatorship almost, that you've got to topple. And at
Yeah,
the same time, having a local cartel, perhaps you could mix all of this in. I think three factions is the right answer. I think four it could work if it was written well. It could work.
yeah,
Any number could work. You could have 5, 6 if it was written well and made sense to the story.
yeah,
But I think three's a nice amount, because if you look at Wildlands, effectively had two, and I think it could have easily had another one. And I suppose you could argue, to a certain extent, at the end you do have three when the
I was just
rebels
going to say that.
turn on you. But you tend to be fighting at that point. You're not fighting Unidad that much, are you, in those missions? So it still feels like two, mainly. Yes, you can get
Well,
a bit of Unidad, but not
would
a lot.
Fallen Ghosts not count as having three? Because you had the last remnants of the cartel, you had Unidad, and then you had Los Hechioneros.
True, but Los Echaneros were working with Santa Blanca, weren't they? So they were just hanging around, or
Yeah,
we're working with Unidad, whatever. So yes, it was three, but it still felt like two,
yeah.
if you know what I mean. But I get what you mean. I get your meaning anyway. But I think three's it. I think that makes sense. Question 26: should enemies use their own refined versions of the Wildlands heat system? Yes, 62. No preference 30. No 8. What do you think of that?
Again, this goes back to, clear differences between how well Wildlands was liked with the way the enemy system was set up compared to how lackluster Breakpoint seems in comparison.
I can get your meaning there. So yeah, I do understand that. I mean, I think
Reinforcement. Oh, that's probably the biggest thing is enemy reinforcement. On Wildlands, once you hit that 4-star system, once you hit that fourth star, it was relentless. You could be in a firefight for 2, 3, 4 hours if you wanted to be. There's just nothing like that in Breakpoint.
no, there really isn't. Obviously, unless you include the Spartan mod, which if Ubisoft were to implement something like that into Breakpoint, which clearly it shows it can be done, it would change Breakpoint completely,
Yeah.
for a lot of
It would
people.
it would almost make it a mize. It would make it the game that they marketed to us.
Absolutely, Absolutely. And who knows? Who knows that they have seen that, and maybe that is what they're working on currently for Breakpoint. That could be its final hurrah. And I think that would go down very well with people.
Yeah,
We can hope. So, question 27: should enemies have their own injury mechanics? Yes, 88%. No preference, A. No, 4%. For me, people, once again, the community is bang on with this. Absolutely, they should have their own injury mechanics. I'd like to think, do you remember in Wildlands where you used to be able to grab hold of someone and effectively kind of knock them out?
yeah,
I would like it that, later on, or if you carry on into the base and whatnot, if you're heading into a base, by the time you come back out again, that guy's got back up,
exactly,
and is not dead effectively. They could have got back up. Like you've knocked them out, they'll be down for however much time, and they'll then get back up again. So if you want to go and stealth the base by knocking everybody out, you've got this kind of timer almost because people are going to be getting back up again. But shooting them in the arm, if you fire someone at the arm, they shouldn't be able to shoot back because they're now being shot
exactly,
in the arm. Or if you shoot them in the leg, they should go down, and the only way that they can now shoot at you is by laying flat on the floor. I mean, to be fair, even if you shoot them in the body, the chances are they would go down. But if they're still alive, they would be shooting you on the floor instead of being a bullet sponge and carrying on running at you, even though you've put 3 rounds in their chest.
exactly.
I think people would love to see that type of
Yeah.
those type of mechanics. People might argue that's far too difficult. I don't know. Let us know what you think in the comments. Is it too difficult? Is it not? I can't
If
see why it
older
can't
games,
be
the
done.
thing is, if older games can do this, there's plenty of older games where you literally see the type of mechanics happening.
Hmm.
Even as something like I know something I seen for Grand Theft Auto the other day, just a small bit, where police officers actually pull other injured police officers away. Just into cover. Things like that. That's what we want to see, especially if you're up against trained military personnel.
Agreed. 100%. Yeah, I'd love to see that. Running out and helping their buddies. I would love to see that.
Exactly.
So, question 28. So, should each enemy faction have its own world modifier? So, you could change detection, engagement ranges, language spoken, difficulty settings, etc. Yes, 82%, no preference 13, and no 5. What do you think of this?
Ironically, this probably ties in the most to the Spartan mod. And this came, obviously, the questionnaire was before the Spartan mod was made, but you look at it, and that's exactly what the Spartan mod does, and it's exactly what people want. I want to make, you want to make the Wolves harder to fight than Sentinel.
Absolutely. And you want them to come after you. You want them to be
Exactly.
like a quick reaction force. They're coming after you. Whereas they just give up. Like you just hide behind a tree and they give up. And I don't want that. I want them to hound you down. If you get in a vehicle and drive off, they get in a helicopter and come after you. They get into a vehicle and come
Ironically,
after you.
the only thing that does that in the game is the Terminator.
Yeah, we'll just give the same settings, but obviously just not the bullet spongeness.
Yeah,
The only thing is that obviously you need to change some things because if you drive into the Terminator with an APC, the APC automatically blows up.
yeah, that's
So things would need changing,
well,
but you could, you've got I get what you're saying. You've got something to work on there in terms of however that works. You could implement that into troops that can still be killed effectively, and they
just with
come
its
after you.
specialized weapons.
Yeah, exactly. So, question 29: how many friendly rebel forces should there be at launch? One, 36%, no preference 29, two factions 28, none 7%. I'd say that one faction's probably enough. I think when it comes down to it, friendly factions, I don't need loads of friendly factions. This game's about shooting people. Let's
But
be
it
honest.
also ties back to that special forces thing where, if they're going to be in country, they're usually training one rebel force, the
Yes.
one that's backed by the US government, the CIA, whatever it is at that time.
Yeah, because normally when there's two, they're fighting, and effectively that other rebel force turns out to be an enemy, and you're better off putting them on the enemy. They might be a so-called friendly faction in terms of they believe they're a friendly faction,
Yeah,
but they are an enemy to you, effectively. That would be a better way of doing it. And I'd also
yeah,
like the fact that your friendly faction, instead of it being just part of the story that they turn on you like Wildlands at the end, they could turn, small groups of them could turn on you
yeah,
out in the field if you accidentally shoot one of their guys, for example. The
yeah,
rest could turn on you. I like that because that's not about doing the right thing. That's about you just shot one of their buddies and they're going to turn on you. That would really make it interesting if you're, assaulting a base and you accidentally blow up one of your guys, and now suddenly you've got to worry about the four guys, rebels that are next to you.
exactly.
I think that
Then,
could.
because that then ties back into question 22 and 23. Do you know, so that goes back to the whole Hearts and Minds campaign. How can you get the local population to trust you if you're then also killing the rebel faction that's trying to free them effectively?
I agree. I agree. Right, this is going to be the final question for this video, part one. Like I said at the beginning, we're going to be doing a part two, so stay tuned for that. That'll be coming in the coming days. So, question 30: should friendly forces have an upgradable skill tree? So, used to level up rebel friendly forces to become more efficient fighters, etc. Yes, 72%. No preference, 15%. No, 12%. What do you make of that, Sandy?
Again, this goes back to everything that you would expect a tier one team to be doing. So, if you've got a limited amount of special forces in the country, a lot of what they're going to be doing is training up whatever rebel force it is, or military force it is, to be doing the missions themselves and bringing them on. Training them on tactics, training them on weapons.
And
It's exactly,
maybe providing them with some gear. You
yeah,
upgrade their gear. So,
providing gear,
so like,
providing support.
yeah, like they start out in just a shirt and jeans or something, and later on you might have them wearing an actual proper vest.
Yeah,
They're not wearing at the beginning,
yeah.
or the one that they're
Something.
wearing is
So,
not very good.
for example, we see it all the time in Breakpoint. You go and steal a truck. You go and steal a supply truck, but nothing comes for it. You deliver the truck, nothing happens, nothing changes.
No,
Maybe over time, if you're stealing their trucks, and it's
their
loaded
equipment
with
gets better.
weapons and gear,
I love that
that would
idea. I love that idea. That's a really good idea. That's a really great, interesting idea. That, yeah, every time you steal something, and maybe you could steal things from bases as well. Maybe
exactly.
and even parts of that's you could use some of the intel that you pick up is intel that the rebels for side missions, effectively for you to then go and hit smaller locations where they're hiding guns and things like that, and the rebels can take those weapons for themselves, and it then builds up a point system where then you unlock the next tier where you can now equip your rebels with better weapons and or better defensive equipment, better helmets,
Exactly.
all that kind of stuff. I love that idea. It's a really good idea, and it would be a great reason to do side missions and things as well. Like little side
Yeah.
quests and things. I really do
Because
like that.
it would go back to something similar to Wildlands, where obviously with the rebels, you could then call in a rebel like distraction team or support team. Now that would be brilliant. So if you had that in a tiered system, and by the time you got it to like level 3, level 4, you had like a 4-man team or 4 and 8-man team of rebels coming in, dressed almost like another special forces unit.
Yeah,
You've built them up, and that 8-man team's got to go and then wreak havoc while you sneak in and do the main mission.
yeah.
That's again just harks back to everything that me personally, I think that what a Ghost Recon game should be.
No, totally agree with you. This has been fascinating. These results are fascinating. And I think most of these questions make perfect sense. The answers, I think the community is really speaking here. So interested to go through the next lot with you. Like I said, we'll have that out very soon.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for everyone who took part in this survey, and any of the other surveys that we did. If you're interested in the other surveys that we've done, that Sandy put together, that we did videos for, they are up on the channel. You can go and find them. Cosmetics and all sorts of other things that people would like to see. So go and check those out. But we will have the second part to this very soon. Keep an eye out for that. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for anyone who's subscribed recently. Massively, massively appreciate every single one of you. Until the next time, from Sandy and I, thank you for watching. See you on the next one. Bye bye.